U.S. presidential elections take place every 4 years, of course, but no matter what happens on November 4th, this election has already made history. First of all, and most obviously, this is the first time that a party has nominated a candidate who is not white. The same party also had the first female candidate for president, with a serious chance of winning the nomination. In that sense alone, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton have made history already and changed the country's politics permanently. Secondly, Obama's campaign is the first in history to use the internet widely to find support and financing, which has attracted an unusually high interest in young Americans for this election. Thirdly, you have to go back 80 years to find the last election in history where none of the candidates running are either current presidents or vice presidents. No matter who wins, there will be a more complete personal change in the White House than in the past. Lastly, as if these milestones were not reason enough already for making 2008 a historic election, the United States and indeed the world economy have quite suddenly been gripped by the most dramatic financial crisis since 1929. From a bank liquidity crisis to a tumbling stock market, to companies going out of business, to people losing their houses because they can no longer pay their mortgages, whoever will be sitting in the Oval Office on January 20th, 2009 will have one of the most difficult jobs in the world ever.
So let me now welcome our guest, Mr. Stefan Roberts.
So, welcome. We'd like to start directly with the first topic to get some overview, and that's differences in party platforms.
I'm acting like a politician now. I'll get to your question right away. Campaigns are always that interesting because you have people running against another. In most cases, there's hardly ever third-party candidates who make the difference. In a little flashback, because most people kind of forget, Bill Clinton got elected because there was a third-party candidate. Ross Perot, an independent, who took away a lot of the votes from George Bush Sr., and Bill Clinton got elected with 43% of the votes. But usually it's one candidate and an opponent. That's because there's a two-party system. And of course, McCain would be, in Switzerland, he would be somewhere between SVP and FDP. Obama, that's one of the main things for me. I'll be very, I'll be watching out very well what he will be doing in office, because it's hard to get a hold of him, what he stands for politically. Maybe we'll get to that later. He would be somewhere in the center, left of center, but not much.
Unlike in Switzerland, the two parties have animals that represent them. There's the elephant for the Republicans and the donkey of the Democrats. Why these two animals?
These two animals, and I'll be honest with you, Mrs. Al told me, I wouldn't have known. These two animals were created in the 19th century by the respective opponents of the parties to make fun of them, to insult them. Cartoons they drew up in newspapers, the elephant and the donkey, and then the parties themselves adopted them as their mascots, and they've stuck to them all along. By the way, there's not only just the elephants and the donkeys as symbols. The Republican Party has a name that a lot of people use for the Republican Party, which is GOP, the Grand Old Party. That sounds like, you know, they've always been there too.
You mentioned that Obama is a very typical Democratic candidate. So is McCain a very classic Republican too? And when yes, why?
I think McCain is less of a typical Republican than Obama is a typical Democrat because, first of all, McCain came very late in life to politics. He came to politics at the age that Obama is about now, although it seems he's been there forever. That's because he's so old. But he got into politics at the age of about 44 or so. Obama's 48 now. And so he was, his profile doesn't come from politics, it comes from military service. His dad, his grandfather were admirals in the Navy. He himself served until 1981 before he went into politics. So he wasn't shaped by the Republican Party, and he's always been a maverick within the Republican Party. He's always fought against the old ways, except on moral issues. On moral issues, he is a straightforward Republican. But and that's why he was nominated too, I think, because he'd always spoken out against the Bush administration. And everybody, just about everybody in the US by now has realized that the last 8 years were a disaster. So if anyone had followed up in the steps of George W. Bush, he would have no chance whatsoever in the general elections now.
Obama was brought up in Hawaii with a black father he hadn't met until he was 10, and whereas his mother was white. And McCain, on the other hand, has a Vietnam War background and also has more governmental experience and has been around much longer. So how important are those backgrounds for the American people? Do they really care?
I think they care a lot, and you mentioned the main characteristics of their maybe not their personalities, but who they are as candidates. It's sort of say the old and the black. It's the old man and the black man. And McCain has this POW past, meaning prisoner of war. He was prisoner of war in Vietnam. He was a hero at the time. He was shot down twice and broke both of his legs and arms, and you know the stuff good stories are made of.
You mentioned he's humble. In recent debates we've seen Obama act always very cool, and McCain, on the other hand, has more angry temper. Is this McCain's big disadvantage, or does this actually impress the American people?
Mr. Cool and Mr. Hot. I think it was his tactics. At a point when he really closed the gap in the polls before the financial crisis started, he felt like he could afford to be aggressive in the campaign, that this was a way he could win over people, undecided voters. And it seems like it still works, because after the last debate, when everybody said he was a little grouchy and he made faces, on Swiss TV you couldn't see the split screen. Most American TV stations showed split screen with both candidates on the same screen, so you could always see how the other candidate reacts to whatever this one says or that one says.
This makes many people wonder if he really is a Christian. We know he is a Christian, but how important is his faith?
I have a question. You said change is going to happen very slowly, but first you said both houses are democratic at the moment. So if we get a democratic president, wouldn't that mean that change would happen fairly quickly this time?
Yes, and a lot of points I do. For example, the withdrawal from Iraq, they can decide that pretty much on their own. Healthcare, for example, is a much, much bigger package that you cannot pass within 6 months or probably not even a year. I'm sure if Obama gets elected, he'll come out even in the transition period from November 4th to January 20th and announce certain things and reforms.